Every summer around this time, my wife Rachel and I send our boys off to their beloved URJ summer camp. Though we know they're excited to get to their happy place, inevitably when we hug them goodbye, the lumps in our throats remain for several hours after drop-off. The thought of not seeing them for nearly 2 months is painful and difficult. And while it might feel a bit selfish, we'll miss our boys, our playmates, our loves. And yet, Rachel and I have no doubt that overnight camp is the very best place for our boys. We feel confident in this because both she and I went to summer camp for over a decade each and found our very same happy places. For me, it was an opportunity to live a Jewish life among friends. It gave me a chance to see how other people think and live through a Jewish lens. It was an experience that I knew I enjoyed in real time, but that has had years of influence on my life since. I attended what was known as a Young Judea camp. Its mission was to create Jewish leaders. You know, my parents didn't choose this camp for its leadership training per se, nor did I attend camp hoping to become a leader. I went because my friends went. My parents wanted to enrich our Jewish learning, and in Halifax, Nova Scotia, that was a high priority for my family. My camp, aptly named Kadima, which means forward, used the state of Israel as a great model of Jewish leadership. And much like Israel's military, the IDF, young people lead slightly younger people. It was a framework that respected the potential of our youth who were called upon to lead one another. We were empowered to think about what leadership meant to us and witness it modeled to us by all of the camp staff. The motto that was memorized was leadership by example. Hadracha b'dugma. And I loved it. In fact, we all loved it because it was experiential learning. For generations of campgoers, our staff, who were relatively untrained informal Jewish educators, used creativity and ingenuity to teach a lesson. There's nothing necessarily academic about it. We sort of learned through osmosis. It was creative and wonderful and organic. Of course, we played softball and basketball, went swimming, held campfires, did all the recreational things one might expect in a summer camp. But what made Kadima unique was the weighted importance of growing leadership skills above all else. My camp made it cool to be a guide, a conductor, a shepherd. To lead was a privilege that came with great responsibility. And the highest honor at camp was to be chosen to be captain for our version of color wars, which we called Maccabiah. Each team was led by 2 staff and 2 campers, and all 16 captains were carefully considered. They were known to be hardworking people, humble and smart. They were the kind of kids and counselors that others would follow happily. I wasn't selected to be a captain when I was a camper. I wasn't ready yet. But after a few years and some not much needed maturity, I was chosen as a counselor. And it was the earliest experience I had in Jewish leadership. The days were jam-packed with responsibilities. Those Maccabiah games taught me the skills to motivate others, to empower them to achieve our shared goals. And I learned one of the most important leadership skills of all: providing and accepting feedback. Truly, though, the first taste of captaincy was stressful and exhausting and emotionally demanding and so incredibly fulfilling. My little summer camp in Atlantic Canada gave me a crash course in Jewish leadership, and I never looked back. So as we scroll the Torah today to Parshat Chukim, which we heard so beautifully chanted by a rabbi, we learn of the infamous water from the rock narrative that ultimately finds Moses and Aaron in trouble, and certainly not demonstrating capable leadership. The Israelites are frustrated, and they are desperately in need of water for themselves and their livestock. And God instructs Moses to take his rod and order the rock to bring forth water. But frustrated by the negative comments, complaints, maybe kvetching from the Israelites, Moses smashes the rock with his rod twice, and the water does flow, but Moses takes the credit for this miracle, when in fact, true credit belongs, of course, in God's omnipotence. Furthermore, Moses rudely criticizes the people, name-calling them rebels, which is a derogatory term in Hebrew. As a leader, he has lost his cool and speaks disrespectfully of his followers. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, a famed 18th century Hasidic teacher, calls Moses and Aaron out for their poor leadership. Rav Levi explains. He says, there are two types of criticism. One makes use of kind, understanding words, uplifting others by reminding them that they are created in God's image and their good deeds bring forth much pleasure. When criticism is then given, it does not tear a person down, but strengthens the will of the person to accept and fulfill the commandments of the Torah. Moses and Aaron were punished because they were needlessly harsh. Instead of rebuilding up the Israelites and improving their sense of self-worth, Moses and Aaron were cruel and sharp-tongued. This breakdown in leadership came with a heavy price. God decrees that Moses and Aaron would not be permitted to enter the promised land. Now, in my humble opinion, the punishment is overly severe for the nature of the crime, but, who am I to question the Almighty? The truth is, throughout the Torah, we see an evolution of leadership. In the beginning, we're privy to very troubling examples. For instance, in the opening chapters of Genesis, Adam blames Eve. Eve blames the serpent for eating from the forbidden tree. And later, Cain shirks responsibility for the murder of his brother, and so on. I mean, these books are rife with examples of failed leadership. In contrast, we scroll to Exodus, where Moses becomes a shining light of leadership. When he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite, he saved the Israelite. When he saw shepherds abusing the daughters of Yitro, he stepped in to aid the daughters. As any great leader would, when Moses witnessed injustice, he was an upstander, not a bystander. In 2012, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs published an article in the Jerusalem Post entitled 7 Principles of Jewish Leadership. In summary, the principles were far broader reaching than just Jewish, but here are the bullet points. 1, leadership begins with taking responsibility. 2, No one can lead alone. 3, leadership is about the future. It is vision-driven. 4, leaders learn. Without constant study, leadership lacks direction and depth. 5, leadership involves awareness of timing and pace. 6, leadership is stressful and emotionally demanding. 7, leadership means believing in people you lead. That last principle is supported by a profound thought offered by Sachs. He writes, Judaism prefers the leadership of influence over the leadership of power. You see, in our biblical history, kings had power and prophets had influence. Power lifts the leader above the people. Influence lifts the people above their former selves. Influence respects people, while power controls people. Sachs continues, Judaism, which has the highest view of human dignity of any religion, is therefore deeply skeptical about power and deeply serious about influence. So on this Shabbat, as I encourage you to consider who you influence and who influences you, when you lead others, do you do so by modeling positive behavior, or do you succumb to frustration? Do you become disrespectful? I invite you to reflect on the best leaders you have known and seen, and try to emulate their methods. Whether you lead an entire corporation or manage a large staff team, maybe you run a household, or you're enjoying your first summer as a camp counselor, I encourage you to consider the positive ripple effect of good leadership and civil discourse. In my opinion, great leaders are ordinary people who step up when they see folks in need, injustice in the world, or a problem that needs a solution. They lead because they see an opportunity to leave the world better than they found it. To a great leader, this is not a burden, but a chance to lead from a place of care and from love. As the psalmist writes, from a psalm I first heard at a summer camp, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, I will build this world from love, and you will build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadadai, Dadai, Yadadadadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadadai, Dadai, Yadadadadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadadai, Dadai, Yadadadadai. Chesed Yibaneh, yadadadadai, yadadadadai. I will build this world from love, yadadadadai, yadadadadai. And you will build this world from love, yadadadadai. And if we build this world from love, yada da da da, yada da da da, then God will build this world from love, yada da da da, yada da da da. And if we build this world from love, yada da da da, yada da da da, yada da da da, then God will build this world from love, yada da 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 da, yada da da da. And if we build this world from love, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da, then God will build this world from love, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da. And if we build this world from love, Chesed Yibaneh. Yada-da-da, yada-da-da-da.